Okay, well, there he is. That's Brody Crook, and I'm Carson Fatland, and this is just our show now. There's nobody else in this show right now. Jay Ross is taking his leave, so welcome back to another episode of Sound on Sports. But hey, we look a little bit nicer. We're recording in 1080p. You're going to see some TikTok clips more often. We're slowly getting this into gear. It's like we're starting to give a shit now. So we have a stack lineup of storylines and a rather kind of, some seasons are starting up, some seasons are wrapping up. We're in the off season for a couple, but we have a lot to talk about. Brody, how are we doing on this fine day?
I'm doing absolutely fantastic, and the biggest reason for that is something that we'll talk about at the very end of the episode. But nonetheless, I am ready to get the ball rolling. Of course, the only two dedicated members of this podcast, we it's our duty to make sure we give you guys a great, fantastic, action-packed show today. So we're just ready to get the ball rolling on that.
Awesome. Yep. So let's start it on the ice. We have the Seattle Kraken fighting for a playoff spot. That's really been the storyline all year. They've really hung in it. Weathered the storm, hung in with the punches, and now they're coming off two solid victories against Vancouver, belt to ass Vancouver. I hate Vancouver, and also beat the defending champs, the Florida Panthers, at home. So really strong victories after kind of a lackluster performance against Colorado, who I think are the best team in hockey right now. They're currently sitting in that second wildcard spot. They have a tiebreaker with the Los Angeles Kings there, but the division is really decided by less than 6 points. So when you look at the top of the division, Anaheim's sitting at 77, and the Kraken are sitting at 72 points. So it's really going to be super tight. We have 16 games left, and there's a mix of divisional foes in there, along with a matchup against Utah. So it's officially crunch time, in my opinion. We got to buckle up. And Brody, what are your thoughts for? I know that we're not really hockey savants, but we are familiar with playoff chases. How do you think the Kraken are going to fare against their divisional opponents down the stretch?
To be honest with you, I guess I would say, well, the first thing I want to say here is it's been a great week for Seattle sports against Vancouver, I must say. And in the spirit of Seattle destroying Vancouver, in the spirit of Seattle performing well when it matters most, I'm gonna go ahead and back the Kraken. Obviously, they made a couple moves before the deadline ended, which were trying to bolster their squad just a little bit to prepare for that final push. And honestly, I think the Kraken are. I mean, obviously, you're not going to beat the Avalanche. It's the freaking Avalanche. But the last two games, comfortable victories. And it's not like the schedule is, insanely difficult. So I don't think I think it's definitely it's
Definitely
probably a
right
flip
there
of
in
a
front of
coin.
them.
It's literally,
Yeah.
it's in it's in their control. And it's
Yeah.
probably a flip of the coin whether or not they make it or not. But I'm going to go ahead and back the boys. I'm going to go ahead and back the Seattleites. And I think we sneak in. I think we sneak right on in there.
Nice. All right. Well, as you mentioned, it's been a great week for Seattle against the Canadian fellows. Let's talk about the absolute demolition against the Whitecaps, a 3-0 victory. I mean, that came out of nowhere. We're like, man, we're going to piece it together, but we got it done. Brody, give us a rundown of that remarkable victory.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, hats off to the Sounders. Like, honestly, going into that game, as you guys saw in the last episode, I was not at all confident against this Whitecaps team. This Whitecaps team, by the way, who fresh off that beatdown we gave them, just walloped Minnesota United 6-0. So they're clearly fucking pissed off about how that game went. But nonetheless, I just thought that was a good game. I mean, the Sounders played. J. Ross and I talk about this often, and it's more so a J. Ross point. Obviously, he's not here to make that point, so I'll make it for him. Sounders in transition. Sounders playing that counterattack style. I mean, that's a heavy, heavy style of play that the Sounders used when they won MLS Cup back in the day. It's a style that we played and used against the Whitecaps. It was very, very executed well. Obviously, they gifted us a goal early in the game, but to just kind of keep the foot on the gas pedal a little bit and then just kind of close it out here and make it so that it's going to be almost impossible for the Whitecaps to come in leg 2 and score 4 goals and get that upset against us. And even if the Whitecaps, let's say the Sounders, I don't know, let's just say the Sounders have a tough outing this game and we rotate the squad a bit. Literally, I don't see in any way, shape, or form how the Whitecaps can make up that 3-goal deficit, especially 3 away goals, because away goals are huge when it comes to the knockout tournaments. So,
Right.
yeah, I mean, an absolute fantastic game from them. I want to shout out Paul Arriola getting a brace in that match. Obviously, traded over here last offseason, immediately tore his ACL, so no one got to even see what he was capable of. And, comes back and has a strong start to the season. And I was excited about Paul Arriola when he came. Just an MLS veteran who's going to put in a great shift week in and week out, versatile player, very quality player, even play with the USMNT for a few years. So it's like, it was a solid signing, and comes in and delivers a brace. Granted, not the greatest of goals, but the fact that he's making those runs inside the box, putting those chances away, it's exactly what you want to see. Shout out Paul Rothrock again, another goal in the Whitecaps game off the bench, and then scores again the following game against San Jose. Rothrock's been off to a fantastic start. I think this is probably, out of all of his entire Sounders career, probably the best stretch of games he's played, in my opinion, just as a complete all-around player. He's never going to be a dude that's this creative mastermind on the wing. He's not the most athletic dude, not the most technical dude, but man, does that guy know where to be at all times. He knows what runs to make. He knows just how to rotate in and out. He just knows when to get back, when to stay for. Like, he knows where to put the ball when he's 1-1. He doesn't hesitate when he wants to finish. Knows where to put the ball every single time. He's just such a sound player. And honestly, I've been harder on Rothrock throughout the years because, those expectations grow. He started off as like this, underdog story, walks into the team, bounced around like the lower parts of American soccer. And then he's from Seattle, of course, hometown kid. And he's kind of blossomed into this, very solid role player for the Sounders. And like I said, last season was a bit critical of him, but he's really starting to come along as like a locked in starter for this team. And, it's good to see. And then I also want to shout out one more player, Jesus Ferreira, which was that was the marquee trade that we made last offseason to get him from SC Dallas, a player that was, at one point MLS Young Player of the Year, MLS All-Star. I think Jesus Ferreira has the record for the youngest player to score 50 goals in the MLS. So a very high-profile signing coming from SC Dallas. First year, didn't really do a whole lot at the start of the season, but then you could tell just when you're watching him, even in the limited minutes that he did play, because we had a big rotation, that this was a player whose game IQ is off the charts, his vision is off the charts, his ability, technical abilities, passing range is very, very top tier. Obviously, the finishing hasn't been great in his Sounders career, but you're hoping that comes along relatively soon. But Jesus Ferreira, he's been the absolute creative engine of this offense, and he's set up several goals. He's already got 4 assists on the MLS season, and I just want to shout him out because he was a player that J. Ross and I both talked about in our preseason predictions as a guy who can really take that next step, and he's looking like he's taking that for sure. And the last big point I would mention, just in terms of the play, is the rise of the Tacoma Defiance players, because obviously we've had a lot of injuries to start the year. The worst being our center back, Yamar, just an absolute stone brick wall that we've had for the last 5 seasons. He's finally, unfortunately, starting to get hit with the injury bug as he ages. And we had Tino Lopez come up from the Tacoma Defiance, who no one really knew of or seen play much at all, maybe in the Open Cup a little bit, but puts on an absolute fantastic showing in his first game as a Sounder, plays the full 90 minutes, goal line clearance as well in that, and just overall solid play. And he's probably going to earn a first-team contract after that. So just being a Tacoma Defiance lad, to be able to do that is something, very, very impressive. And then Cody Baker as well from that outside back spot rotated in for a lot of the guys, because we had, that game against the Whitecaps midweek on a Thursday. So we had a lot of rotation going, and Cody Baker scores a goal, doesn't end up on the score sheet because it was rolled offsides from a player that wasn't even that involved in the play. But nonetheless, Cody Baker put in a good shift as well. And it just shows that we can rely on those Tacoma Defiance players. And it just goes to show how well Brian Schmetzer can get so much out of not so little, but just these
Right.
high
Unproven.
profile players. Yeah, these
Yeah.
unproven guys that haven't had much first team experience, MLS experience, tournament experience, how he's able to just get the best out of them. And when, obviously when two of your designated players are injured and a lot of other key players are injured, that's kind of like the nail in the coffin for a lot of team seasons.
Right.
And the Sounders just keep it pushing, man. They just are able to keep it pushing every single time we have an injury bug, and it's huge credit to Brian Schmetzer. So, absolutely good stuff there. Yeah.
Let me ask you. I know that you mentioned a little bit earlier that you kind of labeled the Sounders' start to the season a little bit uncharacteristic, with a lot of obviously the injuries, a lot of new faces stepping up in new roles. Do you think this is more just kind of false hope and just playing off the adrenaline of all these injuries, or do you really think this might be ushering a new era of Sounders?
I think it's something where I guess what I would say about the Sounders start is I'm not ready to say that it's fluky. I wouldn't say it's fluky. I'd say it's really just, first of all, the first two wins that we had were against lower competition. San Jose has had a good start to the season, but just relatively speaking, the last several years, not the greatest team. Obviously, they did add a guy from Europe, Timo Werner, who had a successful career in Europe, but they did lose like Chico Arango, Christian Espinoza. So they lost a lot of big names, but they have had a good start, and they didn't concede a goal until they played us. So I'm going to count that as a solid win, but at the same time, it could have been just us fraud checking a team that had a hot start, but not necessarily the best.
Right.
But the Sounders have been known to do well when facing adversity, specifically through injuries. The Sounders, honestly, this is a topic I wanted to bring up last season, is how the Sounders, at the very least, play just as well, if not better, when we're missing our designated players. And to me, that's a combination of two things. One, the Sounders have always found a way to scrap together results when there's a lot of injuries. Dating all the way back to the last few years, 2021 even, we had a record-setting team, actually. We had so many injuries that we had to play like 4 or 5 teenagers in the same game, which was an MLS record at the time, and we won a game on the road. So it's nothing necessarily new from the Sounders, but yeah, I wouldn't definitely call it false hope. But what I will say about it is it kind of goes to show, if you can play better consistently,
Right.
Literally, it's to the point where the Sounders won a damn trophy last year for the first time in several seasons without our designated players playing. The only one that did play was De La Vega, who played a key role in that Leagues Cup run, but Rusnak was barely involved and Morris was not involved at all. And we won a trophy without those two. And again, it's just another case of, these last couple games, us playing better without Rusnak playing much, without Morris playing at all.
Right.
It just goes to show you the designated players that we have. They're not off the echelon of designated players for, a team like the Sounders, where in the past, had you lost Clint Dempsey and Obafemi Martins, you're done. Had you lost Nico Ladero, you're done. You lost Raul Ruidiaz, you're done.
So it just kind of goes to show, I guess, more so. I mean, we have players on non-DP contracts that could be creeping up, but more just on the roster construction, just less dependent on the designated players, is what you're saying.
Yeah, the roster construction is just you have a combination of a pretty deep roster for the most part, and a coach that can get the most out of lesser talent. A coach that has them so well organized, specifically in the back, where you can, have several games without Yamar, without Reagan, Kim Keehee. You can put in these guys, whether it's Alex Rodon shifting from outside back to center back, who Alex Rodon started his career drafted the Sounders as a center midfielder, and then made his way to outside back, played even at center back. That just goes to show you Brian Schmetzer, how he's able to get the most out of these kind of players. I think it's a combination of some squad depth plus Brian Schmetzer, just to, be able to maintain this level and maintain just getting points, whether it's winning games, drawing games on the road, without having a lot of key players, but it also goes to show you that our designated players just aren't as
Right.
important or as great as everyone, some fans like to make them out to be, I guess.
That makes sense. And I guess let me ask you this. So, I mean, the Sounders have been performing above expectations with all the injuries that they've faced early in the year. And now the first game in Spokane is next week due to the World Cup. So, do you think this is going to be kind of a vibe shift, or is this going to feel like an away game? Because, it's like, have the Sounders really necessarily played in Spokane before? They're going to have to fly over there. What do you expect, or what are your thoughts about that?
To be honest with you, it's like really kind of unfamiliar territory. I guess I will say, obviously, the Sounders for the longest, I mean, ever since we started, have played our, not it's not the same tournament, but we've played like U.S. Open Cup games at Starfire, which is a complex in around Seattle. I think it's in Tequila actually. So we've played tournaments in a different stadium before, but all the way in Spokane, it's like to me, it's like uncharted territory. I don't know what it's gonna look like. Obviously, I assume it's still gonna be decently packed, but I don't think it's gonna be anything. It's gonna be weird. I don't know. I don't even know what I guess how to feel about it. It's just gonna be weird. It's
And
gonna be different.
why
I
are they
wouldn't.
going over there so early? I mean, the World Cup's not until June. Is it just to reduce the wear and tear on the field?
Yeah, I guess it's just pretty much they're wanting a head start on getting the grass, I guess, ready and whatnot.
Stupid.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know. Well, actually, I'm not sure because the Sounders are playing. No, okay, so they're getting the grass in, and then once the grass is in, the Sounders will go back and we'll play like at Lumen Field on the grass.
It
But it's
seems like just
like
MLS should have just scheduled us on the road for just a little bit long. Like, what? This is just terrible timing. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, that's kind of what they. So like the last few games have been on the road, and then Spokane, obviously, and then we're gonna have another couple games on the road as well to get that grass put in. It's brutal for us, but the fact that we've gotten several like wins in the
Right.
MLS on the road, and in the CONCACAF Champions Cup is huge for us, especially knocking out Vancouver. That's probably like a top contending team in that tournament. So
Right.
it was a good start from us, yeah, for sure.
Well, that's
But
great.
yeah,
Yeah, it kind of feels like when the NFL, like back-to-back years, made the Seahawks play 11, 3 games in 11 days. Like that's just kind of how it felt, But yeah, best
that's
of luck
just
for them.
that's just how it goes. And that, I mean, especially when you're playing and Sounders are playing in the MLS, obviously, CONCACAF Champions Cup, and then we're playing the Leagues Cup again to try and defend our
Right.
Leagues Cup title. So last year was worse. We had 4 tournaments we were playing in. So it's just the life of soccer, just to go 3 games in a week,
Yeah.
for half the season. So
Well, props
yeah,
to them, and hopefully, if there's any listeners in Spokane, hopefully they show out and support the squad as they head over east. That's just going to be so interesting to me. But
yeah.
that being said, we will go ahead and move to the Diamond, where the WBC is wrapping up. As of release date, I guess it wrapped up yesterday. So congratulations to the United States for beating insert team here and becoming WBC champions. We're just coming off, as of recording, they just came off of their electric win over the Dominican Republic. But the storylines have gone anything but great for the Mariners. They are the vibes are down. The vibes are down. The bats have gone a little bit quiet. Gabe Spires let up a couple nukes. Julio had a great first game in pool play and has kind of cooled off. Cal has yet to have a hit, and he has been the face of public scrutiny for the Team US, which is just ridiculous. Randy, got bounced, and the drama is now surrounding, the US and Mexico. When Randy went to go shake his teammate Cal Raleigh's hand as he came up to the plate, tensions were high. US and Mexico have a history of having really, hard fought, passionate games, and Cal just didn't shake his hand. And for a while, we thought that maybe Randy was joking about it, but the bro wasn't joking. He's pissed.
I know. I thought he was joking when that first initial interview about the interaction came out. I'm
Right.
like, okay, he's joking. Nope.
Right. No, he's not joking. And Josh Naylor thought he'd be a funny chud and do it again. And he was like, he told Cal that he was going to do it. And he's like, please don't. And he did it. So that's all in good fun. It seems like Cal's unaffected. But, having Randy, really, messed up over this. He's liking comments that say come back to Tampa Bay. It's just he's real. Julio's out there supporting him, obviously, as a teammate. So, when this wraps up, there's about a week and a half until maybe actually less than a week till opening day, and I'm just a little concerned about the team chemistry heading into the longest season in sports. It's just I am a little worried. I'm not going to lie to you.
Yeah, maybe it's just me, and maybe it's just because I grew up watching U.S.-Mexico rivalries in several sports, but mainly soccer. Like, to me, this is I'm genuinely surprised by the amount of backlash that Cal Rowley's getting. I'm surprised by Randy Rosarinda's reaction. I'm surprised about so many things. Honestly, it's like, to me, it's a joke. It's a joke that Randy's actually this upset about it. Anyone who's like, dude, anyone who's actually upset about this, go watch any USA versus Mexico friendly,
Right.
let alone, a competitive game. You know how many US Mexico finals there have been in the last decade? Probably like almost 10. And
Right.
every single time, it is the chippiest game ever. Fouls left and right. Club teammates who won't even speak to each other on the field. Jerseys getting fucking torn to shreds. Celebrating in front of Mexico fans, taking your shirt off, shushing them while they chuck beer on the players.
Yeah.
Like, it gets fucking wild, dude. It gets absolutely wild. And
well, yeah, and I mean I totally understand that, and I just don't think a lot of people think the WBC is at that level yet. But at the same time, they want it to be at that level. They want it to be the World Cup of baseball, and the hate is just so one sided. I mean, it's Cal. Oh, Cal's not a good teammate. Cal is literally competing for his country. So, I definitely think that I don't fault Cal 1 minute. I think he was caught off guard, and he's he's a competitor. He's one of our clubhouse leaders, and he's the reason we've made it so close to the World Series these past couple seasons. So, he is the captain of our team for sure, alongside Julio. And, I just really hope that we can get some public apology or something going on to where we can just put this to bed. I know Cal, more than anyone, wants to solve this just internally and move on, but Randy unfortunately made it a storyline.
Yeah, I think, honestly, as far as it goes for Cal, as the leader of the team, you just have to do like whatever you can to squash it. And if he's just not wanting to squash it, then it's not. At that point, you gotta wipe your hands clean with it and be like, "This is not a me thing anymore." I mean, I'm sure there's conversations to be had, but if I'm Cal, I'm like, "Yeah, Randy said whatever about me in the fucking media. I don't care. Like, you're my teammate. You're my brother. We're back with the Mariners. Let's get our heads on straight. Let's focus on the mission. And if Randy still wants to be like how he's being, then just wipe your hands clean with it. I got that. I don't know what, or I guess maybe is it over dramatic to say, if Randy's gonna keep it up like this, bro, and it clearly affects the team, can you cut him? Can you trade him? Can you do something? I don't know if that's too extreme. But like, seriously, I'm just saying, I'm hoping to God, and I honestly highly doubt it gets to that point.
Right.
But it's like, if it gets to that point where it's like, so it should be so like long gone and it's still a thing, at that point, do you just can cut him? And I also want to say, like, shout out just real quick, like, shout out to Josh Naylor. I think, like, as much as you have people defending Randy, I think it's also good to have a guy like Josh kind of make light of the situation.
Yeah.
Like, how can you not love that guy, man? He's one time I'll ever root for anything Canadian is when Josh Naylor's at the plate for Canada.
For sure. Yeah. And, it's just with so much expectation on the Mariners favored to win the American League and really make that final hurdle into their first, fall classic. I just, there's just too much on the line right now to have a slow start. And to be honest, the Mariners are a team that typically does start slow as you end March and go into April. We're immediately playing the Guardians and the Athletics, and those teams tend to have our number early on in the year. So, I just really, really hope that Dan Wilson, our manager, can step up and really weed it out. I know he's had some discussions. I know that Randy's put out a public statement through the Mariners about being focused on now winning a championship in Seattle. But you can't help but wonder what's lingering inside that clubhouse. But just to kind of wrap up our Mariners content before we move to the most exciting topic of our episode, Bryce Miller, he's dealing with an oblique injury now. So, He just cannot catch a break. Tried to throw a scheduled bullpen. He threw 2 pitches and then called it a day. He's obviously, just cannot stay healthy, and it's really unfortunate due to, he is on an incentive based contract that requires him to pitch a ton of innings. He's rushing himself back. There's some reports that he's just trying to play through a lot of different injuries. So, Bryce will likely begin the season on the injured list with Emerson Hancock stepping into that role. And, my take about it is, listen, we battled through injuries through most of our rotation all last year. And I'm really thinking that it's time for Bryce just to really put himself and the Mariners' best interest in mind and just take 2 months off on the 60-day injured list. I mean, it does suck to not have your fifth starter, but it's not like the Mariners don't have a couple of options to get him through the first 2 months of the season. They have a strong front four, and really Emerson Hancock, Cooper Criswell, Dane Dunning, even you could burn Kane Anderson's option there. It just really sucks for Bryce, and I just want him to be fully healthy and not feel like he has to, man the ship there.
Yeah, I mean, like, obviously, I don't know to what degree, but it just kind of reminds me of like Kirby last year. And I hope it's not something where because obviously Kirby came back from injury last year and was just like not even close to how his level used to be.
Right.
And obviously, we're hoping for a big bounce back for George Kirby. I just don't want Bryce to come back and, like you said, playing through injuries, and then he ends up having a similar type of season play out, because that would just be absolutely unfortunate, especially like we talk about how he looked in the playoffs, how important and key he was. Yeah, it would just be a shame. And I think you're right about that. Just take the 2 months off. Just take the 2 months off. You're going to be okay.
Yep. It gives us a roster spot, and it's just like, Bryce, lots of last year was pushing through it. He had an elbow inflammation. And, with Kirby and Logan going down, he tried to kind of weather through those. And to be honest with you, yeah, it's just his time. A lot of people do forget about Bryce Miller, obviously, because he came up with Brian Wu and he had quite a remarkable season last year, but he's just as important to the Mariners as a guy like Brian Wu, George Kirby, etc. So, yeah, we're going to be started a little shorthanded, but as crossing our fingers, pending the WBC final and any injuries at the last week of spring training, we are relatively healthy, and that's always a great sign heading into the year. But very, very, very excited. We are so close to Mariners baseball. Lots of new faces, like I said, lots of expectations. So I really hope that it's a fun year. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yep.
All right. Well, we were going to end the episode there, but I mean, we got a literal bomb this morning from a source that we didn't even think could be possible in something like this. We got a Shams bomb this morning. Brody, talk us through it.
Well, as most of us woke up to, we open our phones, we take a look from Shams, okay? The Woj of the current day, the Gen Z Woj, even though he's
the
like
Gen Alpha Woj.
Yeah, exactly. The Seattle Supersonics could potentially return. This is the first time we've actually had a serious conversation about the Seattle Supersonics
for a long time.
In about 2 weeks, the NBA is going to have, I don't know exactly what it's called, but some sort of meeting, some sort of preliminary vote on expansion next week, and it's specifically, it's no beating around the bush what city could get it. It's going to be specifically for Vegas and Seattle. So pending that meeting, pending those votes, if all goes well, the Seattle Supersonics will have their team back and potentially their history back, which should be a no-brainer, but it's still up there in the air. And that could happen, I believe it was reported as soon as the 2028 season is when we can get the team back. So that's the news that dropped today. Obviously, a very, very, very exciting time. It's been in the works for a while. It's been in the works for ever since I can remember the Sonics getting their team back.
Sure.
It was obviously back in the day just ripped from us, especially it's such a promising start. We just drafted Kevin Durant, who had a great rookie season, drafted Russell Westbrook, Sam Presti who's still the GM of the Thunder, was our GM then.
Yeah.
So it is easy to say we would have gone on and make the same exact moves, and all that was ripped away from us. So cheers to, hopefully, if everything goes well, to that new rebirth of the Seattle Sonics era. So,
Yeah, no,
vibes
I
are
mean,
immaculate. Yeah.
the vibes are immaculate, and this is really the first legitimate step in the right direction. It's definitely been rumored the past couple years. Obviously, a failed relocation bid with the Kings coming up to Seattle in 2013 was the first time that I really dove into it. Then we were kind of in a lull until about 2018, 2020. Obviously, COVID postponing any expansion plans. And with the new NBA TV deal with Amazon, they owners were a little reluctant to reduce their shares right away in league ownership, but it looks like it's just crazy to me because this wouldn't happen if the Lakers didn't sell and the Boston Celtics don't win the finals and then immediately sell their teams, because what I'm hearing is that their bids alone showcased the asking price to these two expansion teams. I'm hearing multiple reports that there are multiple bids for Las Vegas and Seattle, upwards to $7 to $10 billion. That we have people lined up to own the Sonics. There's a buzz in the market. Obviously, Las Vegas is an untapped potential with sports. It's going to be interesting. I'm not entirely sure if I'd like an NBA team there, but the NBA has had a presence there, moving the summer league up there a few years ago just to kind of pilot and see what the interest would be like. But it seems as though, Seattle is not going to be an afterthought expansion team. And I'm really curious to see kind of what the direction is like, in any sort of hypothetical expansion draft. But before we get to that, the Thunder have agreed, per their agreement when they did move from Seattle to Oklahoma City in 2008, that if the Sonics were to ever come back, they get their trademarks back, they get their colors, their branding, and everything back, but they also get their history. So that being said, I know that a lot of Seattleites have had harsh feelings toward the Oklahoma City Thunder, but is this a moment where we just say, you know what, truce, best of luck to you? You might move to the Eastern Conference, but also they probably will stay. But is the Thunder hate watch over? Is the 2-decade-long Thunder hate watch over?
First and foremost, God help the East if the Thunder go to the
No,
East.
I don't think so. I think it'll be
just imagining that would be crazy.
It's the Timberwolves or Grizzlies, I think.
Maybe it would be easy to feel that way because you're like, you know what, we got the Sox back. I love everybody. Everything's all good with the Thunder. Blah blah blah. To me, still no. We'll still hate the OKC Thunder, and it's like, it just sucks knowing that. I think it would be less. It would be easier for me to make peace with them if like so much had changed with their like organization. But when the Sonics went to OKC, they still had Sam Presti was the GM, who's now still the GM for the Thunder.
So crazy.
So it's like, to me, it's hard to believe that the Thunder's history would have, or if the Thunder had remained in Seattle, that the team that they have now wouldn't be almost identical to the same team being in Seattle. So to me, it's hard because look at the Thunder now, best team in the entire NBA, one of the best players in the NBA, one of the best just pure scorers we've seen since Kobe. Like seriously, dude, they've got what we should have, and obviously Kevin Durant, dude, and that's the one that I think that actually hurts me the most is that Kevin Durant was supposed to be Seattle's guy.
You're right.
He was supposed to be the face of Seattle sports. We would have gone on to watch a legendary career. Hopefully, maybe not, move to Golden State. But
that would have been crazy. But yeah,
but that should have been ours. That Thunder team, that young Thunder team, that big three with Westbrook, Durant, Harden, that should have been ours. And the Thunder team now should have been ours. I'm sorry, but they've taken so much from us. Where it's like, I know we got the team back, but it's not at the expense of you guys losing your team,
right?
So like to me, it's still there. And every time we play the Thunder, I'm sure it'll be a giant rivalry.
God, the Thunder in Seattle. Holy smokes.
That's going to automatically just spawn in and be like a top 5 rivalry. Right. It's going to be crazy.
So kind of to wrap up the show, I wanted to kind of do kind of a little exercise, I guess, because we don't even know. I mean, what players would hypothetically be out there? And like you said, it's going to be 2028. So it's probably going to be a whole, it's a whole another year, a whole another draft, whole another free agency. So obviously each NBA team can protect 8 players. And then we're also picking against a new Las Vegas team. So what would your strategy be if you're Seattle? Are you going to try to pick up, it's going to be a lot of bad contracts out there. Do you try to just pick some up just to have some names to fill the seats and maybe make a run for the play-in tournament? Or are you totally going, hey, I want to pick up all the young guys that are out there and really start from scratch? Or is it a mix of both?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we won't know how the rosters will look, but just like let's just say like in the next 2 years, the rosters are like relatively the same. I'm definitely looking at who the OKC Thunder are going to leave unprotected because that roster is so stacked, and even their young players that barely play are good.
Right.
There's real chances that even like a guy like Jared McCain could be left unprotected. Probably will be protected, but if he's being protected, then there's a lot of dudes in that roster that will be unprotected that are very good players that won't get a lot of minutes because their team is so stacked. That's where I'm looking first. It really depends just who's unprotected. If it's like I don't know, man. Because I think, first of all, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, Songs come in the 2028 season. That's when Kevin Durant's a free agent. I think it just makes all the sense in the world. Kevin Durant, farewell tour. Like, you got to think about that. So am I going to really try and draft these, like, I don't know, like a DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, or whoever whatever kind of contract will be right there?
Yeah.
I'm not really interested in that. I'm definitely more on the side of let's kind of get those young players and maybe if there's some decent, role players that are kind of in their prime to pair around them, I would like that too. It really all just depends. If it's a big contract, it just is it worth, I don't know. If the name value is worth it, then I could see it. But I think either way,
here's something that I want to avoid. I want to avoid living in nostalgia. I want this to usher a new era of Sonics basketball. I don't necessarily want to be like a Seattle AAU team. So I don't want to go out and get a guy like Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine, you're not going to be watching this, but you're ass. Okay. You're terrible. You make $50 million a year, but you're from Bothell. So everyone's going to want you to be immediately the first pick in this expansion draft. I don't want to start off my franchise miserable. So that being said, I don't necessarily want to have those, local tie storylines. Maybe, throughout the drafts, Tyron Stokes, he's Rainier Beach guy. I would love to draft him, so maybe he's there. Maybe he's our first pick back. But yeah, I just want to avoid being a gimmick team. I think the Kraken kind of fell into that a little bit, drafting the Fleury brothers and things like that. But I just think that there's 60 players in the NBA on max contracts, so we're bound to have some cap casualties on the team just so we can win a game. I just hope it's just not a long-term thing, and I also hope we don't immediately hemorrhage our picks to try to win now. I think that Vegas, the Golden Knights, they went in and they drafted win now and they made it to the Stanley Cup, but they haven't been back since. So I'm not sure if Vegas is going to necessarily make a move like that. We're also competing with, we don't have full autonomy. So we could be picking against Vegas. We don't know what their strategy is going to be, but nevertheless, it's going to be awesome to see Seattle, man. It's going to be hard to get a ticket that first season. I'm going to say it right now. It's going to be incredibly hard.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of just follow up with that point. Is like I agree with you 100%. The only exception I will make is literally for Kevin Durant. That's the only exception I'll make.
Yeah, I get, yes, if he wants to do it. If he wants to do it, if he was to mentor a lot of young players, I think, absolutely. We will.
Because the first year we're going to suck. We will suck the first year. Whether it's with Zach LaVine or without Zach LaVine, we will stink. And I think it'd just be cool to get that. There's going to be a couple, little diamonds in the rough out of all those unprotected players, those young guys you want to try and hopefully build, not necessarily around, but just make them young pieces that could contribute, and you can land hopefully a future top 5 pick that hits. But to get
it's
Kevin
shake
Durant
up a lot of rosters, man, because you look at the modern day NBA and it's just not built with a young core. When the Thunder did it and they ended up winning the finals last year, it was some renaissance that they ended up just stacking through the draft. We haven't seen an NBA team in a long time do what they've done. So it's like you almost can't go too young, but we're not getting a Wembanyama anytime soon again. So it's going to be tough, but I'm ready to weather the storm because I feel like the Sonics will not be the Kings. They're not going to be the Pelicans. They're not going to be just a miserable basement dweller team. They're going to try because they have the city behind them.
Yeah, absolutely agree. 100%. Could, dude. You know what's funny? For so long, I just like I was missing the Sonics so bad that I would be like, I would trade this franchise in Seattle.
Right.
I would trade the Mariners. I even had moments when I was so mad at the Sounders. I would trade the fucking Sounders for the Sonics. So to get them back, like it's just gonna be awesome. And
Yeah,
I've seen
to
some
be
weird like I just want to say I've seen some like weird like I don't know some weird Sounder or not Sounders but like Seahawk reporters be like, oh well, have you watched the NBA recently? Not really a big deal. It's like, all right, dude, can we not be happy about anything anymore?
I saw something to where it was like, guys, when the Sonics come back, are you gonna be a Sonics fan or are you gonna stick with your team? I am not sticking with the Utah Jazz and 76ers, dude. No, absolutely not. This is giving me an excuse because to be honest with you, I didn't join, basketball fandom until 5 years after the Sonics left. Never been to a Sonics game. I was 8 years old when they left, so my parents weren't into basketball. It seemed like the Sonics, although Kevin Durant was a rising star, it just seemed like the early 2000s, no one gave a shit about, basketball in Seattle. But, you never know how good you have it until it's gone. So,
it was really just like, even before Kevin Durant, it was like Ray Allen in his prime, and then like Rashard Lewis, so.
Right.
Post,
it's like our lottery picks
Gary
were
Payton.
Luke Rittenauer. Like, so it's just like, and it was also just a bad era of the NBA. The early 2000s, not, the emergence of LeBron for sure. But other than that, it's just like,
with Jack Kobe Lakers and the Spurs. And then kind of, I mean, the Pistons kind of, but they were kind of.
So a very undefined, unpopular era. But if people want to gripe about how basketball is, these days generationally, it's just like, dude, there's not going to be an empty seat in the Climate Pledge Arena.
Bro, just turn on any like 1980s, 1990s basketball game and just watch it start to finish and tell me if the NBA is more talented, just more skilled now than it was back then. Like, bro.
Exactly.
And also, who cares? Like, bro, who cares? It's the Sonics coming back to Seattle. Like, literally, how could you have anything negative to say right now? That's crazy, bro. The Seahawks just won the Super Bowl. Vibes are high in Seattle, and the Sonics come back, and you're like, well, actually, it's like, all right.
Yeah, no, I feel like that's a very minority take. I feel like the city of Seattle is going to embrace a 15-win team and love it like their second son. So it's going to be great. But that's all that we have for today. A little bit of a shorter episode. We're only 40 minutes in, but that's really it. The Seahawks still need to materialize and figure out their draft strategies. So we will be joining you next week. We will be talking all things. Hopefully Kraken continue their playoff chase. Brody's camera is off, so I'm not entirely sure what's going on there. But if you do like our channel, or if you come across our channel on YouTube, feel free to give us a like and subscribe. We're going to be posting a lot more on TikTok, so feel free to hit that repost. And yeah, so Brody, Brody's power just went out. Okay, well, that's going to be it for Sound on Sports. I'm Carson Valland. He's Brody Crook. Jay Ross is coming back at some point. But thank you guys so much, and we will see you next week.